gonna try to scare her to get money and then use force if needed, and attack, I guess to kill.
Day 3 after murdering someone.
Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
A girl and her boyfriend are accused of killing her father.
Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Their home is a graveyard of memories.
Where did the evil come that was bred into a soul that murders their own father?
I will never see Colleen in a wedding dress. I will never see her walk down the church aisle that we would often talk about before or after Mass. And I will never see her be a mother. Things she wanted.
It is horrifying to think that a minor might be given a life sentence in jail, and it raises many challenging issues regarding the justice system. What transpires when a young person is given a life sentence with no chance of parole? What are their reactions to the news? First up is Sierra Houseth and Aaron Guerrero. For the deaths of the girl's father, Sierra Houseth 16 and Aaron Guerrero 18, a young girl and her boyfriend were each handed a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole. Both admitted to the 45-year-old Daniel Houseth's murder.
Day 3 after murdering someone.
Wow! Daniel was found in the garage of his residence in northwest Los Angeles. The teenagers were arrested in Salt Lake City 4 days later on April the 14th. District Judge Tiara Jones ruled Sierra and Guerrero guilty, and each was given the harshest punishment possible: life in prison without the possibility of parole in 22 years.
Your son is the victim and the killer is your granddaughter. Can you talk about that?
Well, she's not my granddaughter.
The offender must also pay $5,000 in reparation, according to the court's ruling.
You're also going to be ordered to pay $5,000 in restitution to victims of crime, and that'll be done jointly and severally with the co-defendant.
To every charge leveled against them, the two defendants entered guilty pleas. This included 4 counts of fraudulent use of credit or debit cards, murder with a deadly weapon, attempted robbery with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery.
And count 9, robbery with the use of a deadly weapon.
My only query is, why does Sierra appear bored while Aaron seems to be inconsolable, perhaps even a touch drained? She may be a bit more complicated than first appears, but one thing is certain: she is not laughing right now.
After murdering somebody.
Wow! Don't put that on the camera.
It was worth it.
So yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day. Where'd the eel go, Sierra? Hey Sierra, where's the eel?
Next up, Philip Chisholm. Philip Chisholm, a 9th grader at the time, carried out an unimaginable act on October the 22nd, 2013. Chisholm was requested to remain after school on that particular day in 2013 by the supposedly enthusiastic Colleen Ritzer, who was well renowned for going above and beyond to help her children. Today, however, she was unaware that the hourglass, which stood for her life, was about to empty. Chisholm pursued Ritzer into a bathroom and killed, robbed, injured, and abused her there. He then dragged her dead body behind the school after stuffing it into a trash can. Then Chisholm went into town and bought a movie ticket using Ritzer's credit card. The following morning, when the police discovered Philip, they were shocked to see that he still had Colleen's blood on his hands. The indictment that was issued named Philip Chisholm as a defendant for the co-lead Ritzer's murder, aggravated rape, and armed robbery. He was tried as an adult, and in February 2016, a sentence was handed down that required him to serve at least 40 years in prison. The heartfelt tribute seems to ignore the fact that the murderer was a teenage boy who had little to no regret for his heinous act.
And set a parole eligibility date of 25 years, the highest level our law allows. This court will impose a concurrent sentence of 40 years to 40 years and 1 day for the rape of Colleen Ritzer, and a concurrent sentence of 40 years.
Next up, Antonio Barbu and Nathan Pape. Within the state of Wisconsin, a brutal murder of an elderly woman was committed by Antonio Barbu and Nathan Pape, who were both found guilty. According to court filings, Antonio and Nathan planned to harm and rob Antonio's great-grandmother. In the end, they spent the portion of the stolen funds on pizza and marijuana.
We were gonna try to scare her to get money and then use force if needed, and attack, I guess to kill.
The events that followed, in which the elderly woman was repeatedly beaten and then attacked with a hatchet, were straight out of a horror film. Barbu, however, after striking a settlement with the prosecution, modified his plea from not guilty of mental sickness or defect to no contest. However, things didn't go as planned because the judge handed out the harshest punishment. Barbu received a life sentence after being proven guilty. In addition, the court ruled that 14-year-old Nathan Pape would also be sentenced to life in prison.
I know I don't show my emotions much, and I myself am not sure why, but that doesn't mean I don't. I just want to say that I'm truly sorry for everything that happened. I truly regret every single thing that happened that day.
What do you think? Did the judge get it right this time? These kids committed horrific crimes against an old grandmother who wasn't paying attention. Thus, their crime unquestionably earned a harsh term. However, would rehabilitation have been a more fitting punishment? Next up is Shondell Jackson. The University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's Nathan Potter, a 21-year-old bright film student, had most likely made preparations for his life's course following graduation, but fate had some other plans. Nevertheless, Shondell Jackson, a 19-year-old, and his accomplice's plan did not pan out. On that fateful day, 20-year-old Derek Thomas stopped Potter as he was making his way to his apartment, grabbed him, and declared him a fine target for robbery. Thomas was supposed to be the watchman while Jackson robbed Potter, but the robbery went wrong. Jackson shot Potter in the chest, murdered him, and then ran away because Potter didn't have any money. Jackson displayed a carefree attitude throughout the trial, and as he was led from the courtroom, his victim's family could see him grinning and mouthing obscenities. When County Circuit Judge Rebecca Dallett gave Jackson a life sentence without the possibility of parole for one count of felony murder, Jackson's demeanor turned violent. He cursed the judge, so court officers had to wrestle him to the ground, pepper spray him, and restrain him. Next up, Conrad Schaefer. Nearly 3 years after the youngest triggerman and his friends terrorized Osceola County with random shootings that claimed the lives of 2 innocent bystanders, a court sentenced him to consecutive life terms in prison. Conrad Schaefer, now 18 years old, expressed his sympathies to the victims' families.
I would just like to apologize to the families that I've hurt. I know that y'all never forgive me, and I don't expect you to. I know if I was in your position, I'd feel the same way.
Before the shootings began, Schaefer was able to convince his father to buy a .45 caliber high-point carbine and 100 rounds of ammunition. The neighborhood horror story apparently started when he waited until his father went back to bed before sneaking the gun out the home. Schaefer also admitted guilt to 2 counts of first-degree murder within the courtroom, in connection with the escalation of violence that left neighbors on edge for more than 2 weeks as gunfire entered their residences and vehicles over 22 times. The judge declared after the hearing that Schaefer would be receiving the death penalty if he were 3 years older than he is right now, even though this is unlikely to affect how the families feel. However, given his age when the act was committed and his regret, there may still be hope for this young man.
I was 15 at the time, and I'm really sorry for the things I've done. And I know I did wrong, and I know my apologies don't mean nothing to you. And I know it ain't gonna change how you feel about me.
Next up, Martise Fuller. Kaylee Jugger, who was 15 at the time, and her mother Stephanie Jugger had been organizing a camping trip for the whole family, but regrettably, the trip was never executed. Kaylee, who had broken up with her boyfriend Martise Fuller weeks earlier, was in her room listening to music when the tragedy happened. Fuller accuses Kaylee of being the causes of his problems after he got kicked out of school and off the football team. On May the 9th, 2019, he entered Kaylee's room covertly carrying a weapon. Fuller was familiar with the house because he visited it. Fuller, a 15-year-old, entered Kaylee's room and then shot her 5 times. Fuller turned on the mother, shot her twice, and escaped while she walked outside to investigate after hearing gunshots. Thankfully, she managed to survive. Fuller was arrested soon after and accused of burglary, murder, and attempted murder. He maintained his innocence throughout the trial, despite the fact that officials discovered the gun he handed to a relative to get rid of matched the one used in the crime, despite the fact that Kaylee's mother spotted him and spoke up.
My daughter's gone. That means no more's with her. We don't get to see her graduate high school this year. We don't get to see her go to college. We don't get to see her get married or adopt children like she wanted to. She was always by my side, and she was my biggest cheerleader.
She broke down later as she talked about losing her daughter. When Fuller was given the chance to speak in court, he insisted that he was innocent and accused the media of casting him in a negative light. Here's a letter written by him that was read by his attorney.
But I have to continue to stand innocent because I am. And I know that I've barely showed emotion throughout my time, but in all honesty, it is because it's hard to have tears left.
As the judge read down Fuller's sentence, life in jail without the possibility of parole, he displayed no signs of remorse. Matthew Borges. In the case of Matthew Borges, 18, who was accused of beheading Lee Manuel Valoria Paulino in December 2016, the judge has rendered a verdict. He is accused of killing Lee, a classmate at Lawrence High School, while they were both enrolled there. The police have been notified by Borges that he and Paulino shared a joint in November 2016, which was the last time he was seen alive. Lee's death was discovered 2 weeks later by a dog walker on the Merrimack River banks.
I kind of second-guessed myself, I thought I saw a dead body, but I wasn't too sure.
And the circumstances were dreadful. At first, Borges wasn't thought to be a suspect, but all of a sudden, that's where things were going. There was a ton of evidence supporting Borges' guilt, the prosecutor claimed in his final remarks. Investigators claim that Borges repeatedly attacked the 16-year-old victim before chopping off his head to prevent identification of the body. We observed that Borges displayed no emotion or other indicators of feeling as he was given his sentence. His expression appeared to be empty. He was given a life sentence in prison, with the chance of parole only available after 30 years. Well, that was horrific on so many levels. They are so young, and it's unbelievable to hear a 15-year-old getting a life sentence.
Matthew Borges, on indictment number 2017-115. The jury, having returned a verdict of guilty on the charge of murder in the first degree on the theories of deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity and cruelty, you will hearken to the sentence the court has awarded against you. The court, having duly considered your offense, it is ordered by the court that you be punished by confinement for a term of life.
What do you think about the punishment? Is it a little too harsh, or do they deserve it?